podcast, Mind Check. Today we have with us our presidents, Simran and Krrish. This semester we're diving into fest season. Back-to-back madness, sleepless nights, last-minute jugars, and good vibes. So let's begin with our first question. What's the first word that comes to your mind when you think of Ashoka Fest?
I think for me that would be vibrant.
I think on similar lines, colourful.
Why do you say that?
Honestly, I see like a lot of fests at Ashoka catering to different themes and different audiences. And honestly, seeing this amalgamation of different interests all coming together in fests is something that's very vibrant to me, and like I find that very interesting.
I think from a perspective where I don't go for events and competitions, the stalls, the decoration, everything makes it really colourful. You feel like staying on campus on the weekends. Just in general, the vibe change that takes place when a fest is happening is very useful to our normal academically challenging degrees.
Fair enough. So you both have some experience planning a fest as well as attending one. So what's the shift in vibe when you plan a fest and finally attend one?
I think when you're planning a fest, obviously like you have a lot more stake going into it. You've been preparing for months and months on end, and like all your efforts are finally coming to fruition. So on the day of the fest, you're just focusing on making sure that everything runs through smoothly, that the participants are having a wonderful experience, that the team you're working with is also having fun while they're working. And I think when you're not organizing a fest and you're just enjoying it, I think you're just chilling and vibing and walking around, enjoying the stalls, enjoying the decor. And I think both those experiences are something that everyone should have the chance to, go through, because both of them are fun in different ways.
I want to compare my experience of a fest last year and this year, where I was a volunteer last year. So when I was volunteering, I did everything. I was doing decoration, I was doing security for some reason. I think I did a lot of running around that time. This year when I saw the same fest happening, I saw a lot of first years doing it, and it was so cute to see everyone feeling so involved, and then I got no outcome from it. It was just, okay, you were a volunteer, now what? Because I wasn't a member of the club that was organizing it. So I think in that sense, it's very, when you're organizing it and when you're a part of it, they're two very different experiences. You're seeing it from a very outside perspective. When you know what effort's going into it, you're seeing it from a very different perspective.
So you've attended multiple fests over 2 years. What, in your opinion, makes a fest truly unforgettable?
Honestly speaking, most people would say it's the cultural artist. I think that's a bit overrated. I think it's the energy and the vibe that the organizing committee brings to it. You really see the members being happy, smiling, running around, joking around with each other. People really underestimate the fact that the hosts have such a major role to play in the vibe and energy that comes to the fest. And I think just seeing people having fun, being a part of it, is what really makes a fest special.
Do you think fests have a lasting impact, or is it just one weekend of madness and then back to the mundane life of college?
So me?
I think it goes back to normal way too quickly. But also because of the amount of fests we've been having, I feel like everyone's like, oh, okay, again this weekend we're going to have stalls, we're going to have outside food outlets, we're going to music in the lawns the entire day. So I think while it's going back to normal really fast, I think the fests are coming back also really quickly. So I don't think anyone's missing the vibe that you're going back to for the week of classes.
And of course, honestly speaking, I think once your fest is done, there is a little bit of emptiness in your life, right? Because those 2 weeks just before the fest, most fests end up having a war room where the entire team comes, you have all your decor stored, you have your entire core there, everyone's working together, making things work out. And obviously for the organizing committee afterwards, there's a little sense of emptiness. There's also a sense of relief that yes, the fest went well and it was organized very, very excellently. But beyond that, I think it's also okay. I mean, everything, all good things must come to an end, and we have a lot of fests at Ashoka, so we always come back to something better later. So.
That's true. This semester we've had a little too many fests. So do you feel like we're sort of entering a zone of fest fatigue? One ends and another begins, and then again it's Thursday again, another thrift stall, another food outlet. It's never ending per se.
Tell us what you think about this, because we had half the amount of fests we did this year last year. So I think last year it went a lot, we were looking forward to the fest. This time it's become sort of a, we know something's happening every weekend sort of vibe. So tell us how you think what do you think about this?
Personally, I love it because I'm not from Delhi, so I can't go back home. So I stay on campus for like months at a stretch. So I like the fact that every weekend I have something to look forward to, which is not classes. It's a good time to chill with my friends, hang out, debrief over good food because we have outlets coming. So I don't think, and I'm not actively participating in any fest this time, so there's no fatigue per se for me. But the enjoyment, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
And I think from my perspective, I don't think it's too many fests. It's a lot of them, but I don't think there's ever too many, right? Because I see the perspective of different clubs and different socks wanting to organize their own event. Because there are two aspects for it. It's also like for the audience, what value do you bring? And I think all of the fests do bring a certain level of value. But I also believe for the team of that club, sock or fest itself, it's something to look forward to at the end of the year, something big they're organizing, something they're working towards. So in that sense, I think it's pretty incredible. Or in terms of fest fatigue, yes, maybe the student body, like the novelty of fests might have gone, but I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. I think that a lot more clubs and socks which still have a lot of room to grow. They're also getting a chance to express themselves and to kind of showcase what they have to offer. So I think it's a very wonderful thing. And I think at Ashoka, we're a lot about diverse voices and diversity in terms of thought and activity itself as well. And I think that these fests are a very great way of showcasing that. And if you look at the sponsors, the stalls who keep on coming again and again, the students who keep on taking part again and again, it just shows that every time there is value add and there is something being brought to the table every single time. And I think that's just very wonderful. And hats off to everyone at Ashoka who's been really making sure that these dreams do get fulfilled and come true.
So I have a different perspective to this, just from the terms of, so I'm the head of coverage for the yearbook, Coda, and my team is completely burnt out. Like to have to cover 2 or 3 fests every weekend and go on board days to cover different events, cover the headline or things like that has been really hard, where we've had to cut down on covering other events. We have to source images from people because it's exhausting to be on ground covering so much through the day. Of course, it's even for the people who are organizing it, but I think the outcome for them is very different compared to the outcome we're getting from just taking photos or going up to people and taking interviews and things like that. So also in terms of participation from people, like we tried doing an event for one of the fests that happened, and the footfall for our stall specifically was decently low that day. So I don't know if it's that Ashokans are a little tired of going to stalls every weekend, or if it's just that it's become so hot suddenly that people don't want to step out. But in that sense, maybe people are a little tired of the repetition. In terms of food and activity, I'm sure it's great. But in terms of people who are organizing it, I don't know what kind of outcome they're getting. And for me as head of coverage, that has been a different take on it entirely, but I also had to step in and I was like, okay, I can cover a couple of things to take things off them.
The difference in opinion is interesting. So, but I have one last question to end it. What do you think is one learning you have from the hiccups you addressed during the fest, or the sheer planning of the fest, or attending the fest? Like, any one learning something you would like to share with the audience?
Simran?
You go first.
So honestly, I think at the end of the day, the most important learning for me has been that it's fine that if you're a part of a club or SOC, the organization is pretty cool, that matters. But more than anything, it's the team you work with, the people you work with who matter most. If your team themselves are not pleased with the outcomes, if they're not pleased with the process, there's no point of doing any of this. You have to be people focused and you have to be empathetic in your leadership, right? Like, if you see a member who's really tired, really fatigued, there's no point in pushing them over the limit and burning them out. So it's important to be empathetic, and I think my greatest learning through this entire process has been that empathy and caring for your team, the people you're hosting as well, Ashokans, externals, everybody. I think focusing on the people aspect of it is the biggest priority, and that should always be the biggest priority.
So summarize, dreams work if the team works.
Yes, that's true. That's well done. Well done.
So Simran, you mentioned that when you put up a stall on for one of the fests, the participation was quite low, like the turnout of audience was pretty low. So are we actually seeing like a significant dip in people who are attending fests? And if yes, what is your take on that?
So personally, I think we're seeing a dip in people attending anything on campus because so many things are happening that people are just trying to make it for their own events or their own club events or events their friends are organizing. I think anything you're personally interested in is taking a backseat because there's so many obligations that you have to attend for. Also, in Fest specifically, I think the heat is taking a toll on everyone. Like, no one wants to be in the atrium in the heat, just like to play a game or to see a couple of see jewelry, see stickers, see anything. So the food stalls are doing well, obviously, because it's a different vibe to campus. But in terms of activities, I think it is taking a significant backseat when it's coming to anything for that festival, like mess stalls or normal events that are taking place. Everything's taking a sort of backseat compared to normal daily activities.
I think I do have a view on this as well because the way I see it is every batch that comes into Ashoka, like we can see a slight decrease in the interest in cultural activity. And I think this is a larger phenomenon of like, the current Indian age we're in because everyone's maybe focusing more on their career paths and aspects like that. Like at the end of it, I mean, maybe I'm coming from a place of privilege in this case. Most people are thinking of, I want this placement, I want this job. And in that sense, everyone's becoming very career focused and people are not in maybe focusing on enjoying their college life as much. And I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's definitely something that's happening. So what we're seeing is maybe more career focused or academic clubs and SOCs might be seeing not that drastic a drop in engagement, but in other cases, culturally, definitely, I would say, there has been a significant drop. And apart from that, also, I would say because there are a lot of fests, to a certain extent, it's possible that people do get tired if they've experienced something similar before. And but I don't necessarily see this as a bad thing. I think Ashoka is expanding, Ashoka is growing. We have larger cohorts joining every year, and I think over time we will need a lot more fests to cater to like a lot more diverse interests. So I don't necessarily see this as a bad thing. I think Ashoka is a young place. We're only 10, 11 years old. We have a lot of growing to do, and this is a natural part of growing pains for any college. So this is something that I think we'll get through. Ashoka will get through. Ashokan fests, I think, are going to keep on growing and coming back better every year. So this is definitely a problem, but I don't see this as something that's going to impact us long term.
Okay, so Fest is supposed to feel like a celebration, but recently we've seen a shift in view. People are starting to look at Fest as just extra work. So how does one get over that?
I think there are a couple of perspectives to this. The first would be I don't think anyone should be forced to take part in a fest. I don't think anyone is. I think working on a fest is voluntary and optional, and everyone's asked if they want to. I don't think anyone's being forced into a corner. At the same time, I feel like heads of societies, clubs, and fests should always make sure that their team is inclined towards hosting a fest, towards organizing it, and to make sure that the morale is kept high. I think this is a place where leadership is very important, and I think we've seen incredible leadership across the board in terms of making sure that teams are motivated and working well. I think from Orators, we can personally say this. We have really focused on making sure we adapt and evolve in terms of what our team wants and what our team wishes to do and aspires to work on. Because we really feel that if the team isn't motivated by a thought, an idea, or an event, they aren't going to put their 100%, and they shouldn't be forced to give their 100% in that case. So we've adapted and evolved a lot, and we've changed the format of our events. We've scrapped a few events, introduced a few new ones based on what our team wants. And I think everyone across the board is doing that, and if someone is not, maybe they should look into it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So how have you both personally seen the fest culture sort of shift at Ashoka?
Like I mentioned, there were a lot of more fests this year compared to last year. I think that's really good for the growth of the university. I think a lot of smaller clubs have taken on trying to do fests and things like that. I don't know how the outcome has been because I haven't been part of any of the fests, but I'm sure that they've learned a lot more and they can also like build on it next year, maybe collaborate and do fests combined, maybe to lessen the fatigue that we've already talked about. But I think overall it's been great that people have expanded into trying out fests. A lot of people are doing conferences instead of fests, which also has turned out great because they're still doing the speakers, they're still doing the stalls, they're just not doing the competitions aspect of it, which is where I think football was lacking. But in terms of speaker events, in terms of the food outlets that are coming, I think that all has been great anyways. So, yeah, I think it's been great to see a lot more fests happen. People have more activities to do on weekends compared to last year. Where I think I've stayed on campus a lot more this semester compared to last semester, since there has been activities not as dead on weekends where you're like, what do? I can't study again constantly. So, in that sense, it's been a good change to have seen.
And I think apart from that, taking it from a slightly different lens, of course, I agree with what Simran said. I think what I've seen is there's a lot more confidence as well. Anytime I'm taking sponsorship calls, I'm calling people up, I'm able to tell them that we've been so successful in the last year and we're going to build on that success in the coming years. And I think that adds an element of confidence and it builds on the Ashoka dream. And I think the Ashoka dream, like I know I'm maybe taking this to a larger scale, is a very important part of the India dream, right? Because you can, it sounds funny, but at the end of the day, I think it's a lot about creating, building, and leading. And I think that over time, this is really, really a very important part of it because it builds brand Ashoka as well, right? Because when sponsors come and they see the great work we're doing, they see the great quality of education over here, they kind of feel more confident as well and they start interacting more with the college. And I think the students are what make Ashoka Ashoka. And I think fests are something that really add a lot to student life. So,
That was a great answer. So, any final closing words for everybody watching?
Simran?
I think take the time out to go participate in things. It's a good break from your academics. Also, don't I think put yourself out there. Take part, volunteer for fest. Try it out if you don't like it, sure, but at least try it out once. It's an experience. And participate in events. Go eat the food at the stalls. Yeah, step out of your comfort zone for these fests.
Yeah, and I think more than anything, it's your peers putting in a lot of effort to make sure that there's top quality work being put out there. So if you'll engage, interact, participate, it would make a world of difference. And you would also leave there with a lot of learning and a lot of fun. But more than anything, I would say for those organizing fests, those who are a part of the OC, a part of the teams, I mean, great work, keep it up and keep on having fun. I think it's pretty chill that way. Just make sure you're having fun, your friends are having fun, and everyone's having a great time. So.
I think you should participate because if it's a good time, you'll have fun. Otherwise, you'll have a good story to tell. So, thank you so much. That was a great conversation. Thank you for taking that time. Thank you for taking out time for our podcast.
Thank you. We're gonna have to cut this out. I have a very controversial take on.
And I think
We are
that
cutting
does
this.
add up.
Just I forgot the question. How do I?